Hello kids, welcome back to EVS online class. As you know that we are revising for MOY examination. So before starting the class, make sure that you have your EVS reader, this book, and EVS workbook with you. We all know that our body needs energy to be alive and to do activities. We get this energy from the food that we eat. And if we don't eat food, we become weak and tired. And we can even fall sick. All living beings don't eat the same type of food. They eat different types of food. Based on their food habits, living beings are classified into three major groups. That is, first one is herbivores. Herbivores are the animals that eat plant. They are plant eating animals. Second one is carnivores. These animals eat the flesh of other animals like tiger, lion. Then third one is omnivore. Omnivores, they eat both plant and animal like pig, hen, crow. These are monkey even. They are omnivores, means they eat, even human beings also are omnivores because they can eat plant as well as animals. So in addition to these three, we have scavengers. Fourth one is scavengers. So these are these scavengers are organisms that feed on dead animals and plant material available in their habitat. So scavengers are the organisms that feed on dead animals and plant material available in their habitat, and the examples of scavengers are rat, crow, ant, cockroaches, hyenas, jackal. These are the example of scavengers. They eat the dead body of other organism. And the fifth one is decomposer. Decomposers. These are small organisms which feed on that part of the plant or animal or anything. So decomposers are small organisms that eat dead and decaying waste material and help to break it down into simpler form so that it can be easily used by producer to make food. So example of decomposers are earthworm, snail, and all these are. Now we will learn about food chain. What is food chain? We have already learned about food chain. So food chain. Food chain represent a feeding relationship between different living beings in a particular habitat. It shows who eat whom. Suppose this is grass. This is grass. Grass is eaten by rabbit. It is eaten by rabbit. And rabbit again it is eaten by fox. This is rabbit. So grass is eaten by rabbit, rabbit is eaten by fox. This is food chain. It shows that who eats whom. Now producer and consumers. So all living beings need food for their survival. They either make their food or consume food from their habitat. Green plants make their own food in the presence of sunlight. They are termed as producers. So green plants are termed as producers. Animals and other organisms that cannot make their food, they depend on producer or other organism for food. Based on who they depend on, there are three basic level of consumers. So plants are producers. Then after that, primary consumers will be there. Primary consumers are those animals that depend on plant for their food. Then like a cow, goat, these are primary consumers. They are mainly herbivores. Secondary consumers, they eat primary consumers are called secondary consumers, like lion, tiger, they are meat eater. Then tertiary consumers, they eat the secondary consumers and are usually carnivores. Now see here children, this picture, it is showing producers and consumers. This is green plant, it is producer. Can you see? The next is grasshopper, that is primary consumer. Then grasshopper is eaten by uh, shrew, that is secondary consumer, and shrew is eaten by owl, that is tertiary consumers. So there are different level of consumers. Three basic level of consumers: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Now what is food web? Food web, a network of interconnected food chain is called food web. So in a food web there are multiple food chain and one organism can be eaten by many organisms. Now this is food chain, see this picture, and sorry, this is food web and this is food chain. Here there is single path, and here one organism can be eaten by many organisms. This is also food chain, this is also food chain. Now open your workbook, page number 35, worksheet 2. What is food chain? Give one example. I told you a food chain represents a feeding relationship between different living beings in a particular habitat. It shows who eats whom. For example, rabbit eat grass and rabbit is eaten by fox. What are producers? State one example. Producers make their own food in presence of sunlight. Example, mango tree. What are consumers? Consumers cannot make their own food. They depend on producer or other organism for food. Example, cow, lion. These are consumers. Turn the page, page number 36. You have to draw the food chain. Now, come to page number 40. Question number 1, worksheet 7. What is food web? So you have to tell me what is food web. A network, I told you just now, a network of interconnected food chain is called food web. A network of interconnected food chain is called food web. In a food web, there are multiple food chain and an organism can be eaten by more than one organism. Now, next question is, what is the difference between food chain and a food web? What is the difference between food chain and a food web? Food chain are simple because they represent a single path of who eats whom in a particular habitat, whereas a food web is complex because it is a web of interconnected food chain from a particular habitat. In a food web, one organism can be eaten by multiple organisms, whereas in a food chain, one organism can be eaten by only one organism. So this is the difference between food chain and food web. I'll repeat once more. The difference between food chain and food web. Food chains are simple because they represent a single path of who eats whom in a particular habitat. Food chain is very simple, whereas a food web is complex. Why it is complex? Because it is a wave of interconnected food chain from a particular habitat. In a food web, one organism can be eaten by multiple organisms, whereas in a food chain, one organism can be eaten by only one organism. So children, for today, this much only.